Bitta Mustofi, you're with the Green Movement.
Yes.
Why are we out here protesting Ahmadinejad's appearance here at the United Nations today?
Actually, our mission is twofold. One is to draw attention to and to protest the massive human rights violations that him and his administration have committed against the Iranian people, the kids in the streets, the green movements. For the last year now, we're approaching the anniversary. We've seen massive arbitrary detentions. On the 1st of March, we saw the detention of Jafar Panahi, a prominent filmmaker, and a failure to even bring up charges, to say why they've detained him, to show any evidence, to bring him before a judge, no due process whatsoever. So we're here to condemn the massive human rights violations. We're here to call on the international community to quit fixating on the nuclear issue, to really take a look at what's happening in that country, to acknowledge that the human rights issue is the issue. It is the thing to discuss. It's the thing to talk about. They're gathering yet again to dialogue over the nuclear issue, and we've seen not one serious counsel or push for a human rights envoy to Iran on what's happened for the last year. That's completely egregious. It's a violation of their legal and ethical accountability and responsibility.
Are you concerned that he has this forum to speak to the world again, bully pulpit, or do you think it's a good thing?
Honestly, our perspective as a group is that we oppose any policies, any dialogue that doesn't further the human rights interests of the country within. And so I think part of the problem is that the dialogue, not just from Ahmadinejad, but also from the member states, has been one of military aggression, one of crippling economic sanctions. All of this leaves the population, ordinary Iranian citizens, the people who are going to bear the biggest brunt and burden, their voice is voiceless. And so, if him coming here is going to say something that causes the international community to respond the same exact way they have, with threats of military aggression, with threats of economic sanctions, then yeah, that's problematic, but so is the response.
Are you concerned then that actually, with all this saber rattling that we've been hearing, not just recently, but it even predates this current administration, will lead to perhaps some kind of military action ultimately?
I mean, our concern as a group is not solely with military response. It's also looking at what the effect of economic sanctions and policy have, because that's the biggest issue that the Security Council has focused on at the moment, or policy response.
How do you get this regime to come into line, both with regard to the instant issue of nuclear proliferation, and secondly, and more broadly, the issue of human rights violations? What is there in the arsenal of the world community to get them to change?
It's a totally valid point and concern, and I think that our tools are at present minimal, and if nothing else, used fairly on a small scale, if you will. So, one tool that's utilized often by human rights defenders is the calling for the investigation of the human rights abuses by bodies that have been created to do that. So a big push by human rights advocates from the start of this has been for special envoys to be designated to go to Iran and to do the investigations of what's happening, perhaps establishing a case for some of the crimes that have been committed, bringing a broader lens and a more clear understanding to actually how deep the human rights violations are. That's sort of a minimal request. It's really a minimal call if you look at it that way.
And they're not even meeting that.
And they're not even meeting that.